Okay, so so we were seeing we are still in the first unit. We are discussing about the data and how data can be understood, sampling techniques, and so on and so forth. Okay, so today we'll see some of the things, some more aspects like how do we differentiate, how do we understand the data set rather. Okay, so I think these things we saw last time. What is population, what is sample, and what are parameters. Okay, and then we were trying to understand how do we differentiate between qualitative and quantitative data sets, all that. Okay. Basically, like I told you last time, there are two statistics that we should understand, or applications that is available under statistics is descriptive, and another one is inference statistics. Descriptive statistics is identify population and samples and collect information regarding the samples, and then we have to identify what are the parameters that influences or what is our interest of study within that population. Okay, and collect relevant information regarding data regarding that question or objective, and then describe the results. Okay, so it is more like a descriptive nature. So we, for example, if we are studying about characteristics of let's say how color is perceived in a given space, we identify a sample. Okay, and we take we identify a target group, which is population, and then we try to collect a sample within that population, and we have seen what are the ways in which we can do sampling. Okay, the random sampling, stratified sampling techniques, and so on and so forth. And then I identify what is that we want to analyze. Okay, for example, in this case, color in the perception. Okay, and how do we collect the data, and what is the procedure, protocols that needs to be followed when we are collecting the data, and based on the data collected, we describe the phenomena. Okay, so this is descriptive statistics. This is one of the statistical applications that we have. The other one is inference statistics. This is similar to, some of the steps are similar. Identify population, collection of that is experimental units, again like population, and identifying target group, and then collecting the samples, identifying the variables similar to there, identifying the parameters, collect sample from the population. Okay, so similar thing happens here as well. Okay, but here the difference is the entire population is commented based on the samples that we have in hand. Okay, so here based on the data collected, we describe how people are, let us say our sample is 1000 and we describe about 1000 samples. Okay, we don't go beyond that. Whereas in this case, in inference statistics, we comment on the entire population based on the data that is collected. Okay, so it can be 1000 samples, but we are commenting on 1 lakh people living over there or something like that. Okay, so there is a that is a major difference between the descriptive and inference statistics. Descriptive statistics is about the data collected we have, and we restrict our description primarily on the data that we have in our hand, or we comment on the sample size that we have in hand. Whereas in inference statistics, what we do is based on the sample size, we comment on the entire population. Okay, that's the major difference that we can we can keep this in mind. So in doing so, there will be our interpretation, our analysis can be right, or we can be wrong as well, right? So that's why there's another term that is associated with inference statistics is the reliability of the inferences. Okay, so that means if I say based on the sample, 1000 samples, and we say that people are obese, or people lack coherence, or some observations I make. Okay, so my observation may be right or may not be right. Okay, so I am commenting on the entire population of 1 lakh based on the sample that I have, which is 1000. Okay, so always when I make an inferral statistics and inferral observation, there is a high chances that my inference that I am trying to draw may be right, or it may be wrong as well. Okay, so that's why there's a term called measure of reliability that comes into picture when we talk about inferral statistics. What is that measure of reliability and all, we will see. For example, in some case they will say that plus or minus 5% error. Okay, so or we must have seen in some of the papers where they say that the results are in conformity with 99% probability, okay, or 97% probability. Okay, so there is an acceptable error. Okay, so if the error is within that 5% or less than 5% or 3% or 1%, then that inference is acceptable from the statistical perspective. Okay, so when it comes to descriptive statistics, what is the major observation, or what is the major protocol that needs to be followed, or that is followed in the descriptive statistics is we have to know the intent of the descriptive statistics. Okay, for example, let's say what is the intent of coming out with a statistics. Okay, what is the objective of collecting a particular data set. Okay, so once we are clear on that, then other things are very simple to follow. For example, let's say we always make this error. We go to case studies. And start collecting information about the regional context, site context, building, everything, anything and everything under the earth we try to collect. Okay, so actually that is not the correct way of going and collecting information, because there is no clear-cut objective in this approach. Okay, for example, let's say I have a case. I have to make a case study. So what I do is I first ask myself, what is the intent of this case study? Okay, so let us assume I want to know how much is the cost of the building. Okay, what is the cost involved in constructing this building, and how it was how it was spent over a period of time. I want to analyze that spread of expenditure over a period of construction. Okay, when money has been spent and how it has been spent during the construction period. Let's say it has occurred in 2 years. I want to plot how the expenditure for constructing this particular house can be understood over a period of time. Okay, so or let us assume another simple example. Let us say my intent is to quantify how much daylight I receive in a building. Okay, so that's my intent. So if that's my objective or intent of the case study. So in both this case where I am trying to calculate the cost, here I am trying to calculate the daylight availability in buildings. So what I do is I try to collect information only pertaining to daylight or only pertaining to the cost associated with the project. Okay, for example, let us say when I talk about cost, I may not talk about let's say the expenditure was our major focus. So probably I may not talk about the architectural style that is followed, the spatial organization of the floor plans that is followed. Maybe that is not the that's not the scope of my study or case study. Similarly, here in the case of daylight, so I am concerned with the building geometry. What are the building geometry is one, okay. Then we talk about the obstructions that may cause. For example, let's say this is the building. I want first is the geometry of the building will have an impact on the daylight availability. What is the depth and what is the how depth or deep is the floor plans. Okay, and then I would also like to know what is the immediate context that I have surrounding my site that may be an obstruction for daylight. Okay, and then I calculate or I document the reflectivity of the immediate surrounding in terms of material usage and so on and so forth. And I talk about window wall ratio, how much is the percentage of opening, where it is placed, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I may not go into, for example, now if I may not go into cast, I may not again go into the architectural style that is followed and so on and so forth, because that is not the objective of my case study. So if this is clear, what is the objective of a particular case, what is the intent in which I want to approach, then these are other things are very simple and we can adapt a standard protocol. So what descriptive statistics will help is it will help in organize the data set that we collect, okay, display the information that we collect, summarize the data that is collected, will be termed as the output of this will be termed as descriptive statistics. Okay, so what do we do? We organize the data set. So if we are clear on what is the intent of the case study, we try to organize the information, questions and all to satisfy the objective. Okay, so descriptive statistics will help in organizing the questions, collecting the questions, going in a very scheduled manner. Okay, so organization is one part of the descriptive statistics, and displaying that data collected, okay, that is also another part. In fact, that is what we will be seeing in coming discussions. How do we organize the data and how do we display the data? And then we have the most important part where we summarize the data collected. Okay, so these three components are part and parcel of descriptive statistics, and that's how we describe a case based on this approach. Okay, so data can be, for example, let us, if we go further, data can be presented in two ways. It can be listed or it can be put it in a frequency tables. Last time we started briefly discussing about this, and we will continue to do so now. Now let us for example, this is let us understand this how do we display the data set using this method. Okay, for example, the data obtained from measuring the age of 20 randomly selected students enrolled in MARC program at SPA Vijayawada could be presented as a data list. Okay, so we have a these are keywords. Okay, so I hope you will be able to pick up as we progress in the discussions. Okay, so I don't have to describe what is data list when you come across these terms in the papers or when somebody describes it. So data listing is the sample that we have collected over a period of time. So it can be put it like this. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, columns and 2 rows. or this is very simple data set, so that's why we have like this. Or it can be denoted like this in a statistical technique. There are many ways of putting the data set in order. Okay, so the data can be put in this fashion as well. This is a listing of data. Okay, listing of all the data that is collected. Okay, so how do you list this is the one of the steps that we should know. One. Now let us say how do we process this listed data. Okay, so one simple way of synthesizing the data is coming out with frequency table. Okay, for example, a data set can also be presented by means of data frequency table, a table which each distinct x value is listed in the first row, and frequency f, which is the number of times the x value appears in the data set, is given below. For example, let us say we have only 20 samples, so we are able to quickly do this. Let's say we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 80 numbers are there. So what we do is we create a frequency table called f of x. X is the raw data, and we say that how many times this x value is being repeated here, and we also do it in a ascending order. Okay, so that we have a good clear data set in hand. So if you see this number, the lowest number is 17 and the highest number is 24. Okay, so that's what x is put as. The starting number is 17 and the highest number is put as 24. Okay, so if you see and then all the numbers are listed, all the numbers between 17 and 24 which is there in the data set is listed. 18, 19, 20, 21 and 22. Okay, so all the data set is listed here. Now, and how many times 17 is repeated? Only once 17 has come. And how many times 18 data is available? 18 years candidates are there. Okay, 8 times. 19, how many times are there? For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 5 times 19 number is occurring. Like similarly, we construct for all the data set. This is called frequency table. Okay, data frequency table. So this data set can be very easily converted into a frequency table that for further processing. Okay, so this itself is one result which indicates, okay, we can quickly say, okay, how many people are in the range of 18, 19. Okay, what is the number, where is the concentration of what is the concentration where the data is accumulated. All that can be very simply understood by using this frequency table as well. Okay, so I have put a few more things, maybe you can try. Okay, so if I give a number like this, can you quickly write listing? Okay, data listing can be done for this. How do we do data listing for this? Can anyone explain? Are you guys there, or I'm alone?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, right. Yeah.
So we'll just count the number of time it is a single number is occurring.
Okay. So it is
that's
like
the frequency.
Yes, it's a kind of an undoing the data set. So for example, since it's already in a ascending order, we start writing. Okay, 31, then 32. We have 8 times. Okay, so 32 8 times, then 33 5 times. Okay, so it can be the other way. Okay, data listing can be done in the other way, and frequency table can be constructed like this. Okay, and if given it, let us assume, can we quickly do a frequency table for this data set, data listing? What is the lowest value? X. 1. Highest value?
5.
5.
F of 4, how much?
4.
4. 1 2 3 4. Yeah. So these are the easiest way, one of the easiest way of constructing frequency table. So that this is kind of a synthesizing or summarizing data in a gradual manner. Okay, so this is one simple method that we have in hand. Okay, so most commonly used graphical representation of data set when it comes to descriptive statistics are stem and leaf diagram. There is something called stem and leaf diagram, and frequency histogram and relative frequency histogram. So both are actually interrelated. I will explain this frequency histogram and relative histogram in a while. Stem and leaf diagram is also one technique where the data can be synthesized in a very quick manner. We don't need any statistical tool to do these exercises. Okay, not this one, not 2 and 3. In fact, we can do manually as well, but if we provide it, we have very small data set. Okay, let's say 20 50 samples, then fine. If the samples are in hundreds and thousands, these things are quite difficult. We have other method of representing the data set. Okay, so we are discussing a very small sample, and if the sample sizes are small, this is another way of representing the data set is a stem and leaf diagram. So what is stem and leaf diagram? For example, let us say we have 30 students in a classroom, and a test has been conducted for the 30 students, and the results of the test are listed as seen in this table. Okay, so some of them have scored 100, and some of them have scored, I think 69 is there, 25 is also there. Yeah, so how do we synthesize this information from, let's say, stem and leaf diagram? What do we do is we construct one a table like this, where stem is actually the multiples. Okay, so let us say I'll explain here, stem and leaf. Okay, so stem, how do we understand is 10 is one, all the multiples of 10s, all the multiples of 10 in the sense 10 to 19, 11 to 19 can be put under one category. Okay, 2, 20 to 21 or 21 to 29 data sets can be put under stem 2 category. Okay, 3, 31 to 39 data can be put under stem 3 category. Okay, so what we do is we do this major heading based on the numbers. Okay, so we don't have more than 100, so we can say 10 is the highest number. Okay, and we don't have single digit number, so we have the starting number is 25. Okay, so we start with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is listed. Okay, in a column, Okay, and then against 2 we see how many samples are there in the multiples in 20s range. Okay, so in this case we have only one data set, we don't have any number in the 20s. Okay, so we put 1 in this of 5. Okay, the second number is listed here in this. 3, I think there is no 30 number, so it is left blank, or you can put 0 here. 4 is also, there is 1, yeah, sorry, we can't put 0, I guess we have to leave it blank because there is no number involved in it, otherwise 0 will also be counted as 1. Yeah, sorry, just a mistake from my side. 4, 40 is there, so 1 is 1, there is 1 unit in the 40s. Okay, there is 1 unit in the 50s. Okay, do we have 50? Yeah, only 58 is there, we don't have any other number. In 60 we have 68, 69, 69 has come twice. Okay, so we put 6, the second digit 9, and 8 and 9. Okay, 70s we can see 77 is there, 73 is there, 76 is there. So the second number is entered here, 7, 3, 6, 0, 3, 3, 0. Okay, 1 is there, 8 is there, 74, 4 is there. Okay, so we construct this table, okay, column, and then accordingly we try to fit how many data set is under 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on and so forth. Okay, so who decides this number? Yeah.
Sure. If this data set is in decimal set, if there is any decimal sector, then what will be happening?
Again, like I said, if it is a smaller data, it's up to you. I was about to say this. Who will decide this is the researcher. Okay, so I was here, I was actually explaining between 11 to 19. Okay, in the multiples of 11 is my it is the decision of the researcher who will decide this information by looking at the data set. Okay, so I can, in fact, like you said, maybe let us assume you have 2.1 to 2.5. Okay, let us assume we are measuring grades, okay, which is scaled in 5. Okay, so if, how do you do that? Let us say if you want to first I want to know less than 1.9. Okay, and then probably a second category can be 2.0 to 2.5. A third listing can be 2. Let's say 5.1 to x. Okay, so it's the researchers decision to come out with this number and then accordingly put this stem and leaf diagram. Okay, this actually this is done in a orderly manner. This is we have taken based on the sequence. Okay, and then we have put it here. But if you see, it can be done in a orderly manner. It should be done in an orderly manner, rather, that's the correct word. So what is done here, for example, let's say in 7, if you see here, or I have scribbled too much, so this is clear. 8, you can see 86, 80, 83, 83, 87 is there. So normally this is done in a orderly manner. We rearrange this data to show the progressive numbers 80, 83, 83, 86, 87. Similarly here 70, 70, 71, 73, 73, 74, 76, 77, 78. Okay, so this is also one very simple way of converting the raw data to understand how the data is spread. Okay, so now I think if I had I shown you a graph, you would have we can easily say, okay, the data set is higher here. Okay, there is some but people are scoring in this range. Okay, the same thing in the form of number is presented here. If I convert this into a histogram, so it may look like this, right? Isn't it? Okay, so each there is one. If I plot this in a histogram, this is how it will look like. So in 20s we have only one frequency, the number of people occurring is here, but large number of people have scored somewhere in the 70s. Okay, so we can able to quickly understand from the data set how the scoring has occurred in this test or so. Okay, so stem and leaf diagram, ordered stem and leaf diagram is one very simple technique for putting the data set into picture. Okay, so it is our prerogative to put the data set in a correct manner. Okay, so it is our decision based on the data set that we have. We can make decisions on how do we plot this information. Okay, so this is similar to I think the general purpose of the stem and leaf diagram is to provide a quick display of how the data are distributed across the range of values. Okay, so without doing much analysis, if you can just write it in if you can just put the data set in a clear manner, we will be able to understand what the picture is all about. Okay, and like I told you, this is not okay, this is not possible for large data sets. If you have very simple, let's say 20-50 samples, then it is possible for us to make this quick judgments or quick interpretations based on the results that we have in hand. Okay, so this is one way of putting the data set into picture. The other way is this is similar to what we have seen now. The other one is a frequency histogram. A frequency histogram is a device to graphically present the data set that in a very simple manner. Okay, the same thing I was explaining. If I had converted this into graphics, then the output could have been something like this. Okay, so which indicates that we have some y-axis is there. Okay, and we have x-axis, and there's some numbers, okay, associated with this. So which also depicts that, okay, there is some the data is spread in this way. Okay, so the here we are putting it in absolute numbers. Okay, here we are describing the same thing in a graphical manner. Okay, for example, the same data sets, we have seen that in 20s we have 1. Okay, so in 20s we have 1, in 30s nothing, in 40 we have 1, in 50 1, and in 63 data sets, in 70 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 data is there in the 70s. Okay, so that is summarized and put it here. Okay, so here again, if you see, this question will come. Okay, like somebody was asking now also, how do you make sure that this is between 1 to 9 or 1 to 10? Okay, and 11 to 19 or 11 to 20. Okay, this is the decision of the researcher or the one who is analyzing the data set. Okay, so sometimes we take 0 to 9, or sometimes we take 1 to 10, depending on the interpretation that we would like to bring in from the data set that we have. So for the same data set, we saw there is no representation, nobody has scored in tens. There's one person or there's one sample who has scored 1, In 30s nobody has scored. In 40s and 50s there is one score, and in 60s there are some 5 scores, and in 70s there are 10 scores, and similarly in 80s and 90s, and 100% score is also there. Okay, the same stem and leaf diagram can be represented in frequency histogram as well. This is another way of representing the data set, and probably we know this very very much because we use Excel to quickly generate this kind of data set. Okay, so we can understand that this is the same thing. Stem and leaf diagram is nothing but numbers. Okay, this is developed in numbers. However, this is a graphical way of representing the same data set. The general purpose of frequency histogram is very much same as that of the stem and leaf diagram. Okay, so we can understand this to provide a graphical. However, this helps in providing the data set in a graphical manner. Okay, there is a third way of representing the same data set is by relative frequency histogram. Okay, a relative frequency histogram is the same as frequency histogram, except that the vertical axis is relative frequency histogram, not the frequency. Here, what is frequency is numbers, right? Once it has occurred, twice it has occurred, 4 times it has occurred, 5 times, 6 times, 8, and so on and so forth. How many times? Its absolute number is given here. In relative frequency, in relation to 1, for example, let's say this is, I think I have here, this is in relative frequency. Only y table is y-axis value is changed to relative number. Okay, relative to the scores that we have achieved, the number of people have achieved. Okay, there are rather than keeping the absolute numbers. Okay, in some cases we required this because we have to know if we have, let's say, 1000 samples. Okay, so the graph may be very skewed. Okay, or if we want to know in relative to one data set to other how the performance is. Okay, so in that case as well we use the relative data in the y-axis. Otherwise this is also more or less like a relative frequency histogram that we have. Last time I told you 2 things. Okay, we said, for example, this example last time also we saw age, we have listing. Okay, and then we said, okay, the frequency table is constructed for this, and what is it? This is called like frequency table only, but cumulative frequency table. Okay, so the numbers are added up, okay, to show what is the accumulation that occurs in the data sets. Okay, so this is also one way of putting the data set in a good manner. Okay, so there are, if we have to understand this descriptive statistics, we can put the data set. I think 4th one is left here. You can write we can write this as cumulative frequency. Okay, so this is another method where we can summarize the data set in this manner. Okay, so description, if you analyze, there is very limited analysis. Okay, statistical analysis possible. One such technique is frequency tables and stem and leaf diagram tables. Okay, so and probably what I normally do in the exams is I expect that you will be able to construct. Okay, so a stem and leaf diagram for the data set that I have given, or a frequency histogram table for the data set that I have given. Okay, so I expect that you will be able to follow this and you will be able to construct this when it is given. Okay, so maybe I'll share this PPT with you later on. This is not a very great exercise. I don't think it will be very difficult for anyone to follow this. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, can you please explain the cumulative frequency once again?
Cumulative frequency is, for example, here, let me discard this. Yeah, so age is there, 1 2 3 4 5 6, this is the number, and this is the second is frequency table. Okay, let us assume only 1 and 2 is there. We understand this is a frequency table. So that means there are 5 people with age 1, there are 3 people with age 2, there are 7 people with age 3, and so on and so forth. In cumulative frequency, what a table is prepared like this. Okay, and it is, what is the total summation of this? 5 plus 3 8, 8 plus 7 8 plus 7 15 20 24 26. Okay, this summation is done here actually. 5 plus 3 8, 8 plus 7 15, 15 plus 5 20, 20 plus 4 24, 24 plus 2 26. Okay, a frequency table is constructed like this. Okay, so cumulative frequency table is constructed like this. Fine. Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, fine. That is one one thing that we should keep in mind. Okay, so that is we have seen in this data set that I think, yeah, we have some data set here, and if you plot it, we say that okay, there's some high peak here, and then there's some spread of data here. Okay, so how do we this is quickly putting the data set in the picture for interpretation, but if you see in a technical manner, the same data can be understood in very different way, how the data is spread across the samples. So it is actually measured in terms of there's a term called measure of central tendency. Okay, how the data is spread. Okay, how do we understand the data sets? So this is normally measured in terms of mean, median, and mode. I think we have read this during schools. Okay, so the same very simple statistical tools we can use here as well to understand the data sets. What is mean? The first measure of central tendency is average or mean. Okay, the formula is summation of x by n. Okay, so we know this. We'll do this one small simple exercise as well. Okay, for example, let's say find the mean of the data set 2 minus 1 0 2. Okay, so how do we do that? Mean x is equal to summation of x, okay, divided by n. So summation of x is 2 plus minus 1 plus 0 plus 2. Okay, so 2 plus minus 1 plus 0 plus 2 divided by n, 1 2 3 4 n. Okay, so mean is calculated like this. Okay, total number of samples divided by n number of samples. Okay, so mean is nothing but the average. The mean and average are synonymous. We can use it as a synonymous term for understanding the data set. Here also, for example, if I have what is the first question probably that may ask is what is the average score that people have scored. Okay, what is the average score that people have obtained in the test. Okay, so how do we generate that is by using this very simple formula. So that gives a picture that okay, what is the average score in the data set, what is the average or what is the mean value that is there in the data set. Okay, so for example, yeah, same thing, a random sample of 10 students is taken from this from the college record, and then the GPA is calculated. Okay, so how do you do that? We do the summation of all this. Can you quickly do this? Check this whether the this number is right. What is the n?
N, sir.
10.
10, sir.
Okay, right. Mean value is
2.645.
yeah. So is it
It's
correct?
given 2.645.
Yeah, right. So that's as simple as that. So we take all the value, we do the summation of all this, all the data set and divide by number of data sets. So kindly remember this summation of x divided by n. Okay. Then for example, if this is very simple, we have listed this data set. Okay. We have also learned how to construct frequency table, right? Can you calculate mean for this now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can somebody tell
We'll
me?
we'll basically multiply the x with f.
Yes. Okay. So
That
if,
is the total number.
yeah, 3 multiplied by 0, okay, plus 6 multiplied by 1 plus 6 multiplied by 2 plus 3 multiplied by 3 plus 1 multiplied by 4, okay, divided by
19.
okay, yeah. So we should know we can calculate the mean if I give you a raw data set, okay, like this listing of data set, or if we get a table which is a frequency table, we should be in a position to calculate the mean value of the data set that we have. Okay, that's about mean. The second word that we use is median. Median is actually the middle number. You can remember as middle number in the data set. Okay, to see why another concept of average is needed, consider the following situation. Suppose we are interested in average yearly income of an employee at a corporation. We take a random sample like this. Okay, what the average number? Okay, the explanation that is put up here is to know why mean is used. Where do we use median? Okay, like I told you, median is a middle number. Okay, that will also give a picture of how the data set is spread in the overall sample. Okay, for example, let us say this is a very good example. If we are calculating average, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 7 employees are there, and I want to know what is the average salary of the employees. Okay, so let us say annual salary is 24 lakhs, 22 lakhs, 24, 192, 25, 18, and 23. And in average, what we do is we take the summation of this divided by n. Okay, and which is 47.4. Okay, sometimes this may not be correct indicator because there is one fellow or one person who is actually getting more than four times, 4 or 6 times more than the average numbers. Okay, so sometimes that may give a wrong indication of the data set that we have. Okay, so that number, for example, in this case, this is kind of out of box, right? Like find the odd out kind of thing. Okay, these are in statistical terminology, these are called outliners. Sometimes these outliner will change or will have a different interpretations, will lead to different interpretations that we should be careful about in the data set. Okay, so this is one example for how had this not be there. Okay, let us assume 192 is not there, the average value will be somewhere in the 20s, right? If you do the average excluding this 192, the average salary will be in 20s. Since there is one outliner who has got 192 as number, this average goes up very drastically, which is not a correct picture as well. In fact, see, if you see the data set, nobody is getting 47 lakhs per annum. Let us we are talking income. So, but the result says average income of all the faculty, all the employee is 47 lakhs. That may not be correct picture. Okay, so that's why in some cases we require median to know what is the middle number that we have in hand. For example, let's say normally this is if we have a data set like this, we normally exclude this outliner from the data set to get a average to get a correct number. For example, let us say the same data set has been put in a orderly manner in an increasing way, and then we take middle number. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Okay, 3 on this side. Okay, 3 on this side. This is the middle number, which is called as mean. Median. Okay, the median of the salary in the data set is 24.6 lakhs. Okay, so median is also used in understanding the data set to know what is the middle number that we have in the data set. Okay, why do we need this data set? I will tell you. If you see all these three concepts, I will be able to understand why median, mean, mode is needed to understand a data set and how quickly interpret the data set. Okay, so suppose if we are given data sets like this, probably you should be in a position to understand you should be in a position to calculate mean. Kindly remember, the data set has to be put in an orderly manner, okay, or not in the random figures that you can see here. All right, so that's median for you. Okay, so there's some examples, maybe you can calculate and check what is the median value for this. Is this correct? Can somebody quickly check?
Yes. Sir.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Right. So that's median. Okay. So for example, let us say in the data set, probably we may have data. Okay. If you plot this information in the data set, the average, this is a normal distribution of the data set where we can say that there's some, if you put the middle number, median, there are certain data set that is out here, there are certain data set that is out there. Okay, so or in some cases there will be some high numbers because of the outliners. Okay, the higher number can be on this side, positive, or the negative or the positive side. Okay, the data can be spread something like this. For example, let's say if we are plotting from 1 to 100, okay, and we have a data set, large number of data sets in the 60s and 70s, and similarly we have a large number of data sets in the 40s. Okay, so probably we may get numbers like this. Okay, so similarly, if we, in some cases, we may have a data set where the average is somewhere here, okay, middle value is somewhere here, okay, or it can happen in the reverse way as well. So mean or the average and middle will give a different picture if you plot this information in a graphical manner, or if both has to be understood parallelly. Okay, so that we will be in a position to correctly understand. For example, let us say we can't say that average salary though is 47 lakhs, but that is not a correct indication of the data set. Okay, so if you see the middle number, it is only 24. Okay, so we should understand in the data set that probably because of the outliners, okay, we will have we may misinterpret the data set that we have in hand. Okay, so that's why this mean and median is required to that will give some fair understanding on how the data is spread. Okay, so the third component that we use in measuring the data set or to understand the data set or the spread of data set is mode. Mode is the number of the most frequently occurring samples. For example, let us say we have seen this numbers. Here in this case, the most frequent number is in the 70s. Okay, so the mode for this data set is 70. Okay, so in the average may be different. Okay, the median value may be different. Mode value can also be different, where the highest number of data set is occurring. Okay, so that is also in this case. For example, what is the mode here? 0 is mode, the number of times the data set where you have large numbers. So I have given some numbers as well to check how do we calculate mean, median, mode for the data set. So maybe you should practice a little bit because probably we will do some exercises or we'll try to solve some problems in this manner. Okay, so if we have a data set in hand, that data set can be very simply put it in 2-3 ways. We have seen in the first case frequency tables, okay, and then we have seen stem and leaf diagram, okay, and then we saw frequency histogram. Within that frequency histogram, we also saw cumulative frequency histogram and cumulative table, cumulative frequency table. Okay, so this is one way of putting the data set if the data set is very small, manageable one. Okay, and we have also seen that the data can be put in the form of numericals, where stem and leaf diagram is an example. The same can be put it in a graphical manner, where frequency histogram is one way of putting it together. Okay, and like as I said, there are the data set can be understood by the spread of the data set. Okay, or how the data is fitting from the middle number is one method that we have to understand the distribution of the data in a table or in the listing of data. So how do we do that is by understanding mean, median and mode of the data set that we have. Mean is an average, okay, total number divided by n, median is the middle number of the entire data set. Okay, it has to be put it in the order, in a ascending order, and middle number has to be found. Okay, mode is the frequently occurring number in the data set. Okay, so if I have to ask you what is mode in this data set. Okay, I'll put here what is ordered ion. I think you can use this. What is mode here?
There are two modes, 90 and 73.
Yes.
90 and 70.
90. Okay, 93 3 are there. Okay, yeah. So the most frequently occurring.
73 also.
Yeah. So the most frequently occurring data in the data set is termed as mode. Okay, so that will also help us in understanding how the data is spread across the data sets. Okay, so these are are understood from the spread of data set, or the correct word is measure of central tendency in the data set. Okay, so suppose if you are given a there's one data set like this, and there's one data set like this. Okay, so if you see without this graphics, probably we may not be able to interpret this as it is. Okay, this 40, what is the lowest number is 38, the highest number is 43. Okay, in data set 1, but in data set 2 the highest number is 47 and the lowest number is 33. Okay, so if you probably we may not be able to understand or quickly judge what is the data set that we have in hand. But if you plot this, okay, so for example data set 1, 38 ones is there. Okay, 40, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3 data set is there. Then you have 40s, 4, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. 40 we have 4 data set, 39 we have 3 data, and so on and so forth. Okay, so there is a clearly we can say that okay, in 39 and 40 the concentration is more, the highest number, more number of occurrence is occurring in the 39 and 40s. Okay, if you see this the other data set, it's spread. Okay, except one, the data is actually flat, so that means we can't able to clearly judge the results. Here we will be able to quickly say okay, people are performing well at this stage, or there's some indication that consolidation of data set is happening at this number, whereas this result is not a very positive result, because we are not able to say how the data set is working. Okay, so how the data set is actually behaving. Okay, so this is much better for if you see this as a table. This is we will not be able to clearly distinguish what this data is saying and what this data is saying. But if you quickly translate this in the form of stem and leaf diagram, or some frequency tables like frequency histograms like this, or dot tables like this, we will be able to quickly make an initial assessment of what this data set is all about. Okay, and there are certain concepts like other thing, range is also used. Okay, range is nothing but the highest value or minus negative value. Okay, it shows the size of the interval. What is the range? So how do you calculate range? We take the highest value and we take the lowest value, and subtract the highest value versus the lowest value. Okay, the value that we get as a result is range. Okay, it shows the size of intervals in the data set. A smaller range represents lesser variations, and if the variation is more, the variation, if a smaller range represents lesser variations. Okay, if the variations are more, okay, we can see that dispersion is happening here. In this two data set, where is the variation is more in which data set? Data 1 or data 2? If we have to understand this from the spread of data set, variance is high in which of the data set? Data 1, set 1 or set 2? Sorry?
2 plus maybe.
Yeah, this is a huge variation in the data set, okay, that is accumulated here. Okay, so range is another way of quickly making an assessment on how the data is spread across the inventory. Okay, there are other advanced methods, like for example there are two other methods of calculating variability in the data set is variance and standard deviations. We will do this calculation maybe after a break. We will go into we'll check what is the formula for variance and standard deviation and how do we calculate that information after some break. I think I will start after this. Yeah. For example, the range, standard deviation and variance each give answers to question how variable are the data set. Okay, so all this will help in understanding the data set that we have. Okay, so suppose for example let's say we may have two same data sets. Okay, so this will for example if the same is plotted, okay, we can if the data set is similar, probably we may get a result like this. If two data sets are slightly have some variance in the data range, okay, so that we'll be able to understand that. There are 2-3 words that we will come across. One is if the data set is overlapping, okay, then it's called identical set of data, identical data sets. Here this is not an identical data set, but I'm just telling you if you have two data sets 1 and 2 and you want to know what is the characteristics of the data set. So if you plot and if it superimposes on one another, then these are called two identical data set. For example, let us say you want to measure two things. One is measure temperature, okay, at different time, 10, 12, 16 and so on, and you have another data set where you have also taken the perception survey. Okay, I feel warm, I feel cold, I feel sweaty, something like that. Okay, and then if you plot this on one another, we will if we get a plot like this, then these are called identical data set. So we will be able to have an quick interpretation based on this. There will be a difference in variability. For example, locational difference. For example, let's say we have a test score in language and we have a test score in science. Okay, so maybe the class is good. If you plot the same data set here, some of them are performing very well. So if you see the assessment, the language score is something like this. But if you see the science score, okay, which is different, okay, the highest value is somewhere in the 40s, whereas for the language the highest value is in the 70s, something like that. Okay, so there is a variability within that. There could be variability in the data set that is also possible, which is called locational difference. So if you have 2-3 data sets, and there will be different outputs, okay, if you plot it. So it can be like this. I have one example that which I gave was on the test scores. Same person, different subjects, how is performing, or same class, different subjects, how for different subjects, how they are performing. Okay, that is all. There could be a variation in the location of the location. Okay. The third one is variability within the data set. Okay, for example, let us say though this is identical, kind of identical, so it superimposes, but for example, same instance, this is English score. Okay, people have scored 80s in large number. Okay, if you plot it, everybody is falling into this. However, the score in the science is also spread. Highest is 40. Okay, but it is not going beyond that. Okay, so there could be variability. It can have central spread of the data, but the y value will be higher or it can be lower at the same time. Okay, so it can happen in the negative manner as well, which is called location and variability differs. Okay, so in this case, if you plot it, the data set is different, and also in terms of the scoring is also different. Okay, so it's all, if we convert this data set in the form of central tendency measurement, we'll be able to understand how the data is spread with respect to another data sets. Okay, and there is something called percentiles and quartiles. We'll work out some examples for this in some time after the class, so after some break. So maybe what I suggest is we can break for some time, and then we can continue the discussion. Okay, so I'll yeah, so we were seeing this mean median mode discussions. Okay, so we said how the spread of data in a data set can be understood using mean, median and mode. These are very simple statistical techniques that we have for understanding the spread of data. Similarly, I said range. Okay, I said range is also one data set, technique for understanding the data set in the range. Okay, what is the variability in the data set that we have. Okay, these are actually measures of variability in within the data set. Okay, so kindly remember these words so that we can use it appropriately. So this helps in understanding how the data is spread. Okay, so this it's a range and other techniques like variance and standard deviations helps in understanding how the data is spread. Okay, if you remember the last plot, I told if for the same data set we saw the diagram is like this. For data set 2, the diagram is something like this. Okay, how the data is varied, how much it is varied. Based on that, we will be able to make judgment on whether the quality of data or whether we are getting the correct samples or not. All that can be commented just by looking at the data set plotted in a graphical manner. Okay, so range is a similar one where we can try to do this. We'll be able to understand what is the maximum, minimum, and the variability between the higher and lower numbers in this case. Okay, and the most frequently used variability measuring statistical technique is variance and standard deviations. Okay, so standard deviation, we normally say how much your result is deviated from the mean value. Okay, so this gives a correct indication of positive and negative performance, and also on the understanding of the data set that we have. How do we calculate variance? Variance is calculated by a formula, okay, summation of x minus mean value, this is mean, the square root of that divided by n minus 1. So I have some worked out examples. This is we should keep this in mind. For example, let us say we have a data set, the same data set that we used here. We have a data set which says some number, let's say age. Okay, so we have this number. First, for calculating the variance, we need to know mean value as well. Okay, so mean is calculated, we know that total number of x, summation of x divided by n. Okay, so mean is calculated by using a formula, summation of x by n. Okay, so if we do this, summation of all 46, 37 plus 40 plus so on and so forth divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, and if you see the formula, it says x minus mean. Okay, x minus mean. So we have to calculate x minus mean and then do summation square for that. So how do we calculate it? How do we further calculate this x minus mean? So x is kept here. Okay, all the raw value. X minus mean 46. Okay, minus 40. 46 minus 37. Sorry, 37 minus x minus mean 37 minus 46 40 sorry 40 40 minus 40. Okay, 37 minus 40. Okay, again x is this, mean value is this. Okay, so 42 minus 40, 36 minus 40. Okay, so we calculate x minus mean value. Okay, and then using this now we do the summation of x minus mean value and the square of it. Okay, so c square plus all this, you square all this. Okay, and do the summation, you get a value of this, and n minus 1, total number is 10, minus 1 will give you standard variance value. Okay, and if you do square root of that, we get standard deviation. Okay, the formula for standard deviation is same, except it is square root of standard deviation, sorry, square root of variance. Standard deviation is the square root of standard deviation, variance, sorry, I'm again confusing it. Standard deviation is equal to square root of variance. Okay, what is the implication of this? Okay, how do we understand this is important. That will help us in knowing how the data is varying within the spread. Okay, so suppose if we know what is the average value or median value, and we'll be able to say how from that mean or the median value, how the data is spread, whether it is skewed on the from negative side or on the positive side. Okay, so variance and standard deviation is another statistical techniques that we can use In fact, it is one of the commonly used techniques for understanding the data set that we have in hand. Okay, so I have given another example set. Maybe you can calculate the variance and standard deviation and check whether the information is, whether the calculation is right, and if you are able to follow the same. Okay, so if you are not able to follow, check this. I have worked out here. So the same thing can be applied for calculating variance and standard deviation. This has to be understood from the graph as well. Okay, so I will tell you after explaining how do we understand this standard deviation variance. For example, if you have a data set like this, and we like I was explaining, if we know what is the mean value, how is it with respect to mean value, how the deviation is occurring on the positive and also on the negative side. Okay, so on the negative side, what is happening, on the positive side, what is happening, how much is the variance and standard deviation from the mean value that we have in hand. Okay, so that gives a overall picture on how the spread of data is there in the data that we have procured or collected over a period of time. There are other keywords that is also used. For example, percentile and quartiles. Given an observed value of x in the data set, x is the percentile position of the data set, and that are less than the equal to p. So for example, let us say if you see from the example, this is the grade scored by a group of students, and it is placed in an orderly manner. Okay, and if I have to ask what is the percentile. Okay, sometimes if you see the applications, if you send applications to European universities or the American universities, they ask this kind of thing. What is, in fact, if you, especially if I for example, if I give a recommendation letters or reference letters to some of the students, they also ask what is the percentile of this particular candidate with respect to the class. Okay, so this also gives, okay, this is not an exact figure, but it gives an indication that, okay, if people are scoring with this grade, they are in the 10th percentile. Okay, let's say for example, if this is for example the same thing, if somebody asks what is the percentile, a candidate has scored 3.3 CGPA, what is the percentile? So let's say for example, if there are 10 students, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is 80th percentile. So the candidate is in the 80% of the classroom. Okay, he is above 80% range. Okay, so percentile is also another technique that helps in understanding where the data is placed. Okay, if you see this word, it says relative positioning of data set. Okay, relative positioning of a data. Okay, so within the data set, if we have to comment on 39, okay, what is the relevance of 39 in the data set, and if somebody has scored 39 in a test score, how do we understand in terms of percentile and so on. So this helps, will give a specific, we can specifically comment on 39 with respect to the rest of the class. Okay, otherwise, so far what we have seen the median, mode or variance from a particular number and so on. Okay, so percentile will be able to specifically answer to that particular a digit and then talk about that number as well. Okay, what are quartiles are we can understand this again in the form of the distribution of data set, okay, how it is spread from the mean value. There are certain things that we have to understand if we have to plot this in the form of a graph. Okay, what do we do? First, we have to calculate the mean value for the data set, and then it is termed as Q2. Okay, mean, so not mean, median, middle value of the data set, and then it is kept as Q2. Okay, and then we calculate Q1 and Q2, so Q3. Q1 is the middle number of lower range, Q3 is middle number of higher range, okay, Q2 is middle number. Okay, so I have one example, also worked out example. Let's say for the same grades that we have talked about, the median value is 2.62. Okay, so that will be Q2. Okay, I think this is Q3, so error here, this is Q3. Okay, so Q2 value is 2.6. Okay, and this data set, okay, let us say how much we have, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Okay, so 2.62, we have 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 divided equally on the other side. Okay, so if we take the this value, lower half is 1, 1.3, 1.7, 1.9, 2.1 and 2.5, lower than 2.6 value. And if you take the higher value, okay, more than 2.6, these are higher values. Okay, so a median is calculated from the data, okay, overall median, and that is placed as the median score of this plot, and then median of higher value is calculated and median of lower value is calculated. Okay, and then this the entire data set is commented in terms of percentage quartiles. Okay, so you can see all the data set is divided in the form of percentage. Now, who are performing less than 25%, 50% range, and higher 50% range. Okay, lower 25, higher 25, okay, mid 50% range. This 50% range also includes 25% lower and 25% higher range. Okay, so even this technique will also help us to put the data in a simpler manner, so that we will be able to interpret the result in a meaningful manner. Okay, so this is about the percentiles and quartiles that we can use for plotting the data set. And another common method that is used for relative positioning of the data is box plot. Box plot, probably we must have seen like this. Okay, in most of the in most of the diagrams, you must have seen this in a vertical way. Okay, so you have a number and we have some numbers here. Okay, so what does this mean? Okay, so this is x and y. Okay, what does it mean and how do we calculate this plot? Okay, how do we construct this box plot? Okay, this for same number, for same grades, we can able to calculate what is the we have seen this lower mean, median, higher median, and overall median. and also we know what is minimum and what is maximum score. So if you see this plot, what we have is we have the higher value, which is x max, what is the maximum value that we observe in the data set. We have a line which is representing lowest number in the data set, okay, and then within this box, okay, we have a median value, which is q2, we have calculated last time in the previous slides, and q3 and q1, okay, same information, lower median, higher median, this is already there, median of all the data set, and we also plot maximum and minimum in the same data set, okay. So this again is one way of putting the data set for a easy interpretation and analysis, okay. So and one last information is on Z score. Z score is again like we have calculated this standard deviation, right, variance we have calculated. Using this as well, we will be able to plot the data set, and we'll comment on from the data set. If let us assume this is 0, how it is varying on the negative side and how is it varying on the positive side, and what is the variation in the data set within the plot, okay. So all this we have seen 2-3 keywords, okay. I hope we can recollect quickly. First I think let me explain this as well, then we can come to this. What do we use of this Z score? Z score also tells us how the data is spread, or how the data is relatively positioned in overall data set, okay. So this can be understood by theorems as well. There is a theorem called Chebyshev's theorem, which says if the data should be, okay, higher concentration of the data should be between 68, okay, % of the data should fall within this range, 95% of the data if it falls within this range, and 97 or 99% of the data falls within the third range, okay. So if we it is actually a theorem, okay. If the data fits into within this range, then we can say that the data set is normally distributed, okay. There is a normal distribution curve that will be able to acquire if the data fits into this category, okay. Or there can be variability as well within the data set, okay. If that is the case, 90% of the data should fall within the three grades, okay. Suppose this is 0, -1, -2, -3, okay, or similarly positive 1, 2, 3, okay. If we are able to plot this within this data set, okay, it can be a normal distribution curve, or it can be a variation in the distribution as well, okay. Some people may perform very high, okay, and some may underperform as well, okay. So what is this? What is the outcome? What we will learn out of this? So far, what we have seen, okay. So if we quickly summarize, we have seen 2-3 things. Let us do this. First piece of frequency chart, okay, frequency table. How do we construct frequency table so that this will help in quickly summarizing the data set. And then we saw the same frequency table can be converted into stem and leaf diagram. Okay, and that stem and leaf diagram can be graphically represented in the form of frequency, frequency histogram. Okay, so graphically it can be represented to comment on how the data is present. Okay, similarly we have also seen other things like mean, median and mode. Okay, so this tells us how what is the average value, what is the middle number of in the data set, and which is the most frequent number that we can see in the data sets. Okay, so and also after that we have seen this what does this mean, median, mode represents? It represents the central tendency. Okay, where the concentration of the data occurs. Okay, how it is spread across the data set. And then we also talked about how what is the variability between the data set. One simple technique is taking the range as in technique, or we can use variance, or we can use standard deviation to know what is the variance between the highest and lowest value. Okay, this will give relative to data set. It will compare and give what is the relative variance within the data set. And then we also I said, how do we position the data set within the overall data listing that we have done? We can use percentiles and quartiles, or we can use a box plot also for plotting this information. Similarly, z-score can also be used to say how this variation occurs, where the concentration of the data occurs, what is the highest and what is the lowest. So and it can also be further understood by the sum theorem. Okay, for example, Chebyshev's theorem, which says that if the data set, major part of the data set is within falls within 68%, okay, and most of the data set should fall within 99% of the data set. Okay, but how do we interpret this? Okay, normally what happens is we will comment based on this 68% of the data set. Okay, our concentration, our interpretation is based on the 68% of the data set that we have. Probably we may have some data set which is above 70%, and in fact even 90%. That may not be the correct indication of the data set that we have. Okay, so if we have to comment on the overall data set, we have to comment on based on the 68% of the data set that we have in hand. Okay, that's empirical rule or Chebyshev's theorem. Okay, so this is for uniform distribution. We may have ununiform distribution of the data sets as well, where we have different mean for within the data sets. Okay, I think that's it for the day.